Introduction: grip the road and stop spinning wheels. Running a business often feels like driving a high-performance sports car on an icy road, where you are pressing the gas pedal to the floor but only spinning your wheels. The book Traction by Gino Wickman offers a practical, battle-tested framework called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, designed to help business owners regain control. Instead of relying on vague theories, this book provides actionable tools to align your team, clarify your vision, and execute with relentless discipline. It is a masterclass in stripping away corporate complexity to reveal the simple, underlying mechanics of a profitable, stress-free company. By mastering its 6 core components, you can finally stop wrestling with daily chaos and start driving your business forward with clarity and purpose. Point 1. Why do smart businesses hit the ceiling? Every wildly successful company starts with a spark of brilliance, but sheer passion is rarely enough to sustain long-term growth. At some point, almost every entrepreneur wakes up to realize that the business they built to give them freedom has somehow become a relentless, exhausting prison. You might find yourself working 80 hours a week, constantly putting out fires, and wondering why your brilliant ideas are not translating into actual profit or peace of mind. Gino Wickman identifies this universal phenomenon as hitting the ceiling, and it is the exact moment when the sheer force of your personality is no longer enough to carry the company forward. Hitting the ceiling happens to everyone, from individual employees to entire departments, and ultimately to the organization as a whole. You might notice that revenue has plateaued for 3 years straight, or perhaps your employee turnover is suddenly skyrocketing. When you hit the ceiling, you usually experience 5 universal frustrations. The first is a profound lack of control, where you feel like the business is running you instead of you running the business. The second is a lack of profit. No matter how much revenue you bring in, the bottom line simply does not reflect the immense effort you are pouring into the work. The third frustration centers around people. You look around at your partners, employees, or vendors, and you realize that nobody seems to be on the same page, leading to endless miscommunications and dropped balls. The fourth frustration is the ceiling itself, the invisible barrier that stops your growth dead in its tracks. Finally, the fifth frustration is the realization that nothing seems to work. You read management books, you try new software, you bring in consultants. But these are all just temporary bandages on a much deeper wound. The root cause of all these frustrations is the lack of a comprehensive operating system. Just like your computer needs an operating system to run its application smoothly, your business needs a foundational set of rules, processes, and tools to coordinate human energy. Wickman introduces the Entrepreneurial Operating System, a remarkably practical framework designed to synchronize the 6 core components of any business: vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. When these 6 components are optimized, the chaos dissipates, and the business begins to run like a well-oiled machine. But before you can implement this system, you have to understand the fundamental dynamic at the top of the leadership chain, the relationship between the visionary and the integrator. In almost every successful small to mid-sized business, there is a visionary. This is usually the founder, the person with 1,000 ideas a minute, the big picture thinker who sees the future of the industry and holds crucial relationships with major clients. Visionaries are absolutely essential for growth, but they are notoriously terrible at managing the day-to-day details of a company. They get bored easily, they change their minds constantly, and they can unintentionally create chaos for their staff. To counterbalance the visionary, a business desperately needs an integrator. The integrator is the steady force, the person who takes the visionary's wild ideas and translates them into actionable business plans. They manage the internal operations, hold the team accountable, and ensure that the company is actually hitting its goals. Many companies hit the ceiling simply because the visionary is trying to play the role of the integrator, forcing themselves to manage spreadsheets, and mediate employee disputes when they should be out exploring new markets. Recognizing which role you naturally play and finding your counterpart is the very first step toward breaking through the ceiling. Letting go of the vine is another crucial concept you must embrace. Picture a person hanging over a cliff, gripping a vine with white knuckles. Someone at the top tells them to let go, promising there is a safety net just below the fog, but the fear of falling makes them hold on tighter. As a business owner, you have likely been holding on to every single decision, every client interaction, and every minor problem because you believe nobody else can do it as well as you can. But to grow, you must let go of the vine. You must trust a system, empower your leadership team, and accept that true growth requires stepping back from the microscopic details. Implementing a real operating system takes courage because it forces you to look objectively at the flaws in your organization. It requires you to stop relying on your gut feelings and start relying on structure. However, the payoff is immense. When you finally break through the ceiling, you discover a level of business maturity that brings back the joy and freedom you sought when you first opened your doors. The journey begins by getting your entire leadership team completely aligned, which brings us to the very first component of the system, the vision. Point 2, painting a vision everyone actually understands. You cannot reach a destination if nobody in the car knows where you are driving. Yet, countless businesses operate entirely in the dark. The founder might have a crystal clear picture of the company's future locked inside their brain, but if you walk down the hall and ask 5 different employees where the company is heading, you will likely get 5 completely different answers. This lack of alignment is the silent killer of productivity. When a vision is not shared, employees make daily decisions based on their own assumptions, pulling the company in a dozen different directions. To fix this, the Entrepreneurial Operating System uses a remarkably simple 2-page document called the Vision Traction Organizer. This tool forces the leadership team to answer 8 specific questions that completely define the company's past, present, and future. The goal is not to create a fluffy corporate mission statement that gets framed on a wall and immediately forgotten. Instead, the goal is to create a practical working document that guides every single hire, fire, and strategic move the company makes. The first question you must answer involves defining your core values. Core values are not aspirational words you think sound good, like integrity or excellence. They are the deeply ingrained, non-negotiable guiding principles that already exist within the very best people in your company. To discover them, you do not brainstorm what you wish you were. You look at the people in your organization who you absolutely love working with. What traits do they possess? Are they relentlessly curious? Do they always do what they say they will do? Once you identify these 3 to 7 core values, they become your ultimate filter. You will hire by them, review employees by them, and most importantly, you will fire people who repeatedly violate them, no matter how talented those individuals might be. The second question defines your core focus. Many companies fail because they suffer from shiny object syndrome. They try to be everything to everyone, taking on clients outside their expertise just to make a quick dollar. Your core focus is the intersection of your passion and your niche. It answers why you exist and what you are uniquely good at doing. Once you define this, it acts as a laser beam. Any opportunity that falls outside your core focus gets an immediate and polite no. This discipline prevents the business from scattering its energy and confusing its market. Next, you must establish your 10-year target. This is your big, hairy, audacious goal. It should be something that energizes the entire company, a mountain you are all trying to climb together. It does not need to be deeply analytical. It just needs to be a clear, inspiring picture of where the organization will be a decade from now. Having this target gives everyone a sense of purpose and scale, showing them that they are part of something much larger than their daily tasks. Once the long-term vision is set, the fourth question brings it down to your marketing strategy. You cannot conquer the world all at once. So you must define your ideal target market. Who are they? Where are they? What is their demographic and psychographic profile? Along with the target market, you must identify your three uniques. These are the three things that, when combined, make you completely different from any competitor. Your competitors might have one or two of them, but nobody else has all three. You also outline your proven process, which is the visual representation of how you take a customer from their very first interaction with you all the way to a satisfied long-term client. The fifth question is the 3-year picture. 10 years is a long time, so you need to bring the vision closer to reality. What will the company look like exactly 36 months from today? How much revenue will you be generating? How many employees will you have? What will your office look like? By painting a highly specific picture of the 3-year mark, you give your brain and your team a tangible reality to work toward. It bridges the gap between the distant future and the immediate present. The sixth question is the 1-year plan. This is where the vision starts to become highly actionable. What must happen this year to ensure you are on track for the 3-year picture? You define your revenue target, your profit goal, and the 3 to 7 most critical goals for the year. Less is more here. If you have 20 goals, you actually have none because your focus is too diluted. Limiting it to a handful of objectives ensures that the most vital work actually gets done. The seventh question involves setting your quarterly rocks. These are the immediate 90-day priorities that keep the company moving forward. We will explore rocks deeply in a later chapter, but within the context of the vision, they represent the absolute ground floor of execution. Finally, the eighth question is the issues list. What are the obstacles, problems, and barriers standing in the way of your vision? Documenting these issues gets them out of your head and onto paper where they can be systematically destroyed. When a leadership team spends the time to argue, debate, and finally agree on the answers to these 8 questions, something magical happens. The entire organization suddenly aligns like iron filings drawn to a magnet. Every employee understands the rules of the game, the ultimate destination, and exactly what they need to do to help the company get there. But a crystal clear vision is completely useless if you do not have the right people executing it, heavily emphasizing the next crucial component of the operating system. Point 3. Finding the right people for the right seats. A brilliant strategy is absolutely worthless if you have the wrong crew executing it. Business owners often complain endlessly about their employees, citing a lack of motivation, poor communication, or constant mistakes. But the hard truth is that people problems are almost always leadership problems. If you are constantly frustrated by your team, it means you either have the wrong people in your company or you have the right people sitting in the wrong seats. Mastering the people component requires a ruthless, objective approach to evaluating every single human being on your payroll. The concept of right people is entirely determined by the core values you established in your vision. Right people are those who naturally share your company's belief system. They fit your culture like a glove. When you are around them, you feel energized, not drained. To measure this objectively, the entrepreneurial operating system uses a tool called the People Analyzer. You list your core values across the top of a page and your employees' names down the side. Then you rate each employee on whether they exhibit each core value most of the time, some of the time, or rarely. This simple exercise is incredibly revealing. It immediately highlights who truly belongs in your organization and who is secretly poisoning your culture. You might discover an employee who is incredibly skilled at their job but consistently violates your core value of teamwork by belittling others. This person is a toxic producer. Keeping them around because they hit their sales numbers sends a devastating message to the rest of the company. You do not actually believe in your core values. Firing a toxic producer is often painful in the short term, but it almost always results in a massive, immediate boost in overall team morale and productivity. Having the right people is only half the battle. They must also be in the right seats. This means they are operating in roles that perfectly match their unique abilities and passions. To determine the right seats, you must completely forget about the people you currently have and focus purely on the structure the business needs to thrive. This requires building an accountability chart, which is vastly different from a traditional organizational chart. An organizational chart just shows who reports to whom, often based on ego, history, or office politics. An accountability chart defines the major functions of the business and the 5 core roles and responsibilities for each function. Most businesses can be boiled down to 3 main functions: sales and marketing, operations, and finance and administration. Above these 3 functions sits the integrator, the person who beats the drum, breaks ties, and ensures the 3 functions are working together harmoniously. And above the integrator sits the visionary. Once you have drawn out the structure your business needs for the next 6 to 12 months and outlined the 5 major duties for each box, only then do you start writing names into the seats. When evaluating if a person is in the right seat, you use the GWC framework. GWC stands for Get It, Want It, and Capacity to Do It. Get It means the person truly understands the role, the culture, the pace, and how their job fits into the bigger picture. Their brain is simply wired for the position. Want It means they genuinely desire the job. You cannot teach motivation. If someone is just showing up for a paycheck but has no real passion for the responsibilities, they do not want it. Finally, capacity to do it means they have the mental, physical, and emotional bandwidth, as well as the necessary skills and time to execute the role successfully. For someone to be in the right seat, they must be a resounding yes for all 3 elements of GWC. If any of the answers are no, you have a major issue. Sometimes you have an incredible person who perfectly matches your core values, but they just do not GWC their current seat. Perhaps you promoted your best graphic designer to be the art director, but they lack the capacity to manage people and secretly hate the responsibility. This is a classic case of the right person in the wrong seat. The solution is not to fire them, but to find a seat that actually aligns with their abilities, even if it means moving them back to their previous role. On the flip side, you might have someone who completely GWCs their seat. They are highly competent and deliver great results, but they do not share your core values. This is the wrong person in the right seat, and as mentioned earlier, they must be removed from the organization. The ultimate goal is to reach a state where you have 100% right people in right seats. When you achieve this, managing becomes effortless. You no longer have to micromanage or constantly motivate your staff because they are naturally driven to succeed in roles they love within a culture that supports them. Navigating the people component requires making tough, emotional decisions. It means looking your best friend in the eye and telling them they are no longer the right fit for the company they helped you start. It means demoting loyal employees who have simply hit their ceiling of capacity. But maintaining a subpar team out of guilt or fear is a disservice to everyone, including the employees who are struggling. When you build an organization entirely populated by the right people in the right seats, you create an unstoppable force. Yet, even the best people cannot perform effectively if they do not know the score, which leads us directly into the power of objective data. Point 4, ditch the drama and look at the data. Opinions and emotions are terrible steering wheels for a growing company, yet many business owners rely almost entirely on them to make critical decisions. Walk into any typical management meeting and you will hear phrases like, "I feel like sales are down," or "I think our customers are happy," or "It seems like the marketing campaign is working." These subjective statements create endless debates, bruised egos, and a profound lack of accountability. When you manage a business through intuition and assumptions, you are essentially flying an airplane through a thunderstorm without looking at your instruments. You might feel like you are flying level, but you could actually be nosediving toward the ground. To strip the drama and ego out of your organization, you must implement the data component. This means replacing subjective feelings with hard, undeniable numbers. The primary tool for achieving this is the company scorecard. Imagine a single piece of paper containing 5 to 15 high level numbers that give you an absolute pulse on the health of your business every single week. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only receive one piece of paper a week to know exactly how your company was performing, what numbers would be on it? Most businesses already track some data, but they usually look at the wrong metrics. They rely heavily on profit and loss statements or monthly financial reports. While these are important, they are what we call lagging indicators. A financial statement tells you what happened in the past. It is like looking in the rearview mirror. By the time you see you lost money, the damage is already done, and it is too late to change the outcome. The company scorecard, on the other hand, is built on leading indicators. These are activity-based numbers that predict future results. For example, instead of just tracking monthly closed sales, a good scorecard tracks weekly cold calls, weekly qualified appointments, or weekly proposals sent out. If your weekly target is 50 proposals and the scorecard shows you only sent out 20, you know immediately that your closed sales will suffer next month. You do not have to wait 30 days to figure out there is a problem. You can intervene right now. Other leading indicators might include website traffic, customer satisfaction scores, billable hours utilized, or manufacturing errors. The specific numbers will vary wildly depending on your industry, but the principle remains exactly the same. Creating the perfect scorecard takes time and refinement. You will likely start tracking a few numbers, realize they do not actually give you the pulse you need, and swap them out for better metrics. Every single number on that scorecard must have a goal associated with it. If the metric is customer complaints, the goal might be less than 3. If the metric is sales calls, the goal might be greater than 100. Furthermore, every single number must have one person and only one person accountable for it. If 2 people are accountable for a number, nobody is accountable. When a number drops below the established goal for the week, it is considered off track. The beauty of the scorecard is that it prevents you from attacking the person and allows you to attack the problem. In a weekly meeting, you do not spend time yelling at the sales manager for missing the target. You simply acknowledge that the number is off track, drop it down to your issues list, and systematically solve it later in the meeting. The numbers become an objective truth that everyone can see and agree upon. Beyond the leadership scorecard, the entrepreneurial operating system insists that everyone in the organization must have a number. From the receptionist to the warehouse worker, every single employee needs at least one measurable metric that defines their success. When everyone has a number, clarity increases dramatically. Employees no longer have to guess if they are doing a good job. Their number tells them exactly where they stand. It creates a culture of positive peer pressure and self-management. People naturally want to hit their goals, and when their performance is visible, they will push themselves harder than any manager ever could. Embracing data transforms the entire culture of a company. It eliminates the political maneuvering and the he said, she said arguments. When a department claims they are overwhelmed and need to hire more staff, you do not have to guess if they are right. You look at the data. If their productivity numbers are low compared to industry standards, the issue is not a lack of staff. The issue is highly likely a broken process or poor management. Data shines a bright, unforgiving light on the dark corners of your business, exposing the real problems so they can be fixed. And once you expose those problems, you must have a relentless method for destroying them. Point 5, tackling the real issues head on. Sweeping problems under the rug only creates a massive tripping hazard for your entire team. In many organizations, there is a subtle, unspoken rule that bringing up difficult topics is discouraged. People smile in meetings, nod their heads, and then immediately go back to their desks and complain to their coworkers. Conflict is actively avoided, and as a result, the exact same underlying problems persist for months or even years. This culture of artificial harmony is incredibly toxic and is a primary reason why companies hit the ceiling. To grow, you must view issues not as personal failures, but as the raw material for business improvement. The issues component of the entrepreneurial operating system is all about building the discipline to identify, confront, and permanently resolve the problems holding you back. The first step is simply getting the issues out of everyone's heads and onto a tangible list. You need to create an environment where calling out an issue is rewarded, not punished. If a major client is unhappy, if a key process is broken, or if two executives cannot stand working together, these facts must be dragged out into the open. You should maintain 3 distinct issues lists: the long-term list on your vision document, the weekly leadership team list, and the departmental lists. Once an issue is on the list, it must be systematically destroyed using a tool called the IDS track. IDS stands for Identify, Discuss, and Solve. It sounds incredibly simple, but most leadership teams completely fail at executing all 3 steps. In fact, most teams spend all their time stuck in the discuss phase. They talk about a problem in circles for an hour, everyone shares their opinion, people get defensive, time runs out, and they agree to talk about it again next week. Nothing is actually solved. The IDS track acts as a guardrail to prevent this endless conversational loop. The first step, identify, is often the hardest part of the entire process. The problem listed on the paper is rarely the real problem. It is almost always just a symptom. For example, the issue might be stated as, sales are down this month. If you immediately start discussing how to boost sales, you are treating the symptom. You must dig deeper. Why are sales down? Because our main competitor dropped their prices. Why does that matter? Because our sales team doesn't know how to articulate our unique value proposition. Suddenly, the real issue is identified. The sales team lacks proper training. You must relentlessly ask why until you hit the absolute root cause. Once the root cause is clearly identified and agreed upon by everyone in the room, you move to the discuss step. In a healthy team, this is where open, honest, and sometimes heated debate takes place. Everyone gets to share their perspective, propose solutions, and argue their points. However, the rule of the discuss phase is that nobody is allowed to repeat themselves.